All right, here's the trailer for Archenemy.
I used to sit on top of the highest buildings in Chromium and look down like a god.
You still got them superpowers?
The power to drink a fifth of whiskey and not pay for it.
Dad was a storyteller.
See? It's in our blood.
I used to punch holes through space-time.
Hey! Oh, you're the dude who says he's from another planet. You got superpowers, right? Come on, I just want to hear your story.
My city was named Chromium.
So that's where you're from?
They had to invent things to hurt me. Intelligent asteroids, killer robots.
Super villains?
Say super one more time.
Oh, okay.
Even the whiskey's weaker here.
Space whiskey. All right, look, do you have any superpowers at all? Or?
The source of my power doesn't exist here.
Why you gotta fill the kid's head with bullshit?
I've always been good to you, right? To you and your family.
You're risking our lives to hang out with some homeless man?
Max didn't have to do any of this to help us.
They will find you and they will kill you.
So what are we supposed to do?
You fight the war.
Fuck. Get Max Fist.
We're gonna play a game!
Where's my brother?
You look insane.
All right, let's bring in Adam Egypt Mortimer. What's up, Adam? How are you?
Hey, Happy New Year!
Happy New Year to you too. Thanks for joining me for a few to talk about your movies and amazing movie. I thought it was so fantastic.
Thank you.
I saw you down in the queue, and you, as soon as I started the trailer, you sat right up and watched. Do you enjoy watching your movies? And I would imagine that I'd be very excited about watching the trailers because obviously a little mini movie. Do you still get excited about watching your stuff?
I think that this trailer in particular, I really like. I think this is my third movie, and this time I think they really nailed the trailer. Like, I think it's really exciting. It kind of shows off a lot of what's cool about the movie. So I like this one. I've had trailers in the past that make me kind of cringe. So this one's been a good experience. I think between the trailer and the poster we did, which is a really cool, like, drawn style by an artist I like. That's been fun. As far as watching the movie, it's a real love-hate relationship. So on my last movie, Daniel Isn't Real,
Another great movie.
Festival with that. I was traveling everywhere. I was in Florida, I was in Spain, I was in London, I was in Texas. And I would often watch it with the audience because I wanted to see how they would react, at least at the beginning of the cycle. And it's such a miserable experience. Like, especially the first couple times we showed that movie, it premiered at South by Southwest, and I just felt like I had so much riding on it. I had no idea how people were going to react to it. And then I think that movie, Daniel Isn't Real, for those who haven't seen it, it's a horror movie, and it's doesn't have a lot of jump scares. It's like sort of a constant state of anxiety.
It's psychological, yeah.
Insane. So it's not a movie where there's a lot of reactions. And so, the first two times I saw it, I was sitting there in a packed theater, and it was just dead silent all the way through. And like, anytime anybody would scuffle their feet or sneeze or get up to go to the bathroom, I would be like, I've ruined my career. It's the worst movie. It's so bored. People are fleeing. And then the movie would end, and then people would cheer, and we do a Q&A, and lots of people would start talking to me about, like, oh my God, I was so tense the whole time, and saying these really positive things. And so it took me many times of seeing the movie with an audience to understand that people liked it, but it was a really miserable experience. And I don't think it was until like 8 months later when it premiered finally in Los Angeles at a festival we have here called Beyond Fest at a big, huge theater. And I was like, you know what, at this point, I'm confident people are like it. I can enjoy it. And And I would often stick around to watch the movie when it played in a really nice theater, like that one, or we played it in an IMAX screen in London. So that was always exciting. With Archenemy, because of the pandemic, that was a big piece that was missing from the whole process. Is we haven't been able to do a lot of that stuff. We had one premiere. Our world premiere was at a drive-in.
Wow.
And it's like, a year ago, if you had said like, hey, you're going to make this cool science fiction superhero action movie and it's going to play for the first time in the world, it's going to play at a drive-in theater in Montclair, California, I would have been like, what? How did I screw that up?
Yeah.
But the reality of 2020 was that like that was the coolest possible thing we could have done. And it was really fun to bring people together in a way that was safe and show and we just had fun. It was the sound is weird. It's a drive-in. But I think the payoff of making a movie, especially the kind of movies I make, which are like a little bit weird and you have to think about it and they have a lot of emotional impact, is getting to interact with people who've seen it. So with Daniel, since I had the opportunity to constantly be traveling, I was always doing that. And with Archenemy, I've been trying to find other way, connecting to people on Twitter, trying to find a way to have that interactivity, because that's everything else you do is anxious, and finally getting to show it to people is the payoff.
I watched Daniel is real, and it was very tense. I found myself quiet through the whole thing, like you were saying. Not a lot of jump scares, but the effects were really cool. So if you're a fan of horror, and what came to mind was The Thing, the 1980s version of The Thing. There were a few scenes that really mimicked that alien and how that was portrayed, especially when the two of them, I don't want to give too much away, but the two of them converged. And I thought, wow, these, for an independent movie, these special effects are pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, that was, part of the idea with that movie was, so the story is it's about a kid whose imaginary friend comes back to him when he's in his early 20s. And it starts off very, very, sort of psychological thriller. But I was really interested in trying to make a movie that spins slowly, like more and more insane. So starting with, it's these two actors talking and it's kind of tense and what's really happening. And then, by the time you get to the last third, it's like you say, it's crazy, science fiction, supernatural effects, and they're traveling into other dimensions, it becomes quite cosmic. For me, the effects, like creating creatures and trying to make all of the weird, impossible things that happen, like make those feel realistic and emotional as well as visually insane is that's like the thing I'm the most excited about. So there's a scene that you're referencing where the two characters kind of like split apart and morph, and there's these kind of body horror moments. And when we went into figuring out how to do it, I was like, it's really important to me that we can actually glue the actors together with the prosthetics and have them like react and pull, have the people who are acting it be able to do something. And then you can still enhance that with CG. I also use computer generated effects, but to start it with something that the actors can touch makes it more real for them, and they can do a lot more with it. And so it sort of gives it a lot more impact.
Yeah, kudos to the actors, because they really did pull it off. Whereas back in the 80s with The Thing, those were creatures. These were the real actors acting as they were being pulled apart. I found that to be fascinating. Now, I found the two movies very similar. I was reading an interview, and I know you would somebody asked you something, and you're like, I'm really curious to see if people can see the trends in my filmmaking. And what I got from both of those movies was a mood, obviously, but the landscape, the environment. These two movies could have been in the same place. They could have taken place at the same time, because you really don't know, especially with Archenemy. You don't know. It seems like the very near future. Right. But it seems like both of these worlds could have existed in the same plane.
Yeah, that's cool. No, I'm glad that you felt that way. With Archenemy, we shot it in Los Angeles, but I didn't want it to be a Los Angeles based movie or even a Los Angeles set movie. So we tried to use areas that were, not recognizable as the city. And, there's a lot of places that are, really like these weird kind of like post-industrial, almost burnt out neighborhoods, but also, sort of colorful, arty districts. And sort of wanted to create kind of our own idea of a city in the movie, which I think is especially, because it's a version of a superhero story, and the idea of a city what that means in a superhero. You know, there's Gotham City, there's Metropolis, and I sort of wanted to create our own version of that while making it still, you know, in the mode of the movie, which is grounded and realistic, but heightened in a strange way. Yeah.
And like what you're saying with Daniel, it starts one way, and Archenemy starts one way. It could go to a totally different movie, totally different story. But it starts off with this bum, Joe Manganiello, right?
Yeah.
He plays Max Fist, but you think he's just a drunk hobo that's got, you know, a screw loose, and he's talking about how he used to be a superhero, and this kid meets him. And this kid's trying to be a I don't even know what they are. I'm 48 years old. The influencers. What was he?
Yeah, I mean, at a certain point, I think of him as simply a journalist. But
Okay, yeah.
Very contemporary tools. You know, so he goes to a company that's kind of like BuzzFeed, and he likes, I want to write for you. But you know, I think there's an interesting, you know, what is an influencer? What is social media, but for me it was like, oh, he's like Jimmy Olsen. What's the modern day version of Jimmy Olsen?
I like that.
Teenager writing for BuzzFeed.
Because it's a story about Superman. We've seen bad Superman. We've seen Superman without his powers. We've also seen the movie Hancock, you know, about a down and out superhero. This was totally different. And as it went on, you're like, oh wow, maybe he is a superhero. And then, oh wow, maybe this is his comic book in his head that he's drawing off of from his youth. There were so many different ways the movie could have gone, where the end payoff was that much greater, because they're like, there it is, that's the story, and it still could have went somewhere else after that.
Yeah, I really like the idea of having reality, the feeling of having reality shifting under your feet. So I think in both Daniel and Archenemy, you're forced to be asking a question about what is real, but it's I'm trying to not do it in a way where it's like, and then there's like a Twilight Zone twist or an M. Night twist and one reveal. It's more like this state of uncertainty where you're, you know, it's like, and I think that's why I'm interested in thinking about these movies as being sort of psychedelic. You know, it's like you're having this experience where reality is kind of like shifting and it's different colors and it's twisting around you. And so there's not going to be one answer. There's going to be the journey.
Do you know a lot of people that watch your movies on drugs?
I hope I do, but I haven't. I think it's a completely reasonable. Well, it's funny, you know. On Daniel Isn't Real, I remember scolding my friends for drinking before seeing that movie, because I was like, Daniel Isn't Real is not a drinking movie.
No,
you're gonna pay attention to it. You're gonna be in it. It's gonna scare you. There's a lot to think about. But with Archenemy, I'm kind of like, yeah, this is a movie where you could get a little loose in your brain. It's not going to hurt the experience.
Like you said, it's very psychological. I mean, psychedelic.
Yeah.
And also there's an animation component to Archenemy, which comic book fans will absolutely love. So what was the idea to bring that component into the movie?
Yeah, the animation sequences are all showing us the story that Joe's character, that Max Fist is telling. And so it's his superhero adventures, but it was important to me to present them in a way that it would feel like, are these dreams, or are they made up stories, or are they hallucinations of a madman, or are they actually adventures in another dimension? And so they had to feel really differently than the rest of the movie. You know, like if we had tried to shoot them, I think realistically, and made cool CG world and people flying, it would have felt too real, and it needed to feel like it's this whole, you know, what if you really were a guy who used to fly between black holes and then you got knocked into a different dimension? Your memory of that, the old life, you would even start to question if it was real or not. I mean, I think we go through life and we're like, that thing I remember about being 12 years old, did that even actually happen? And imagine if that was in a different dimension. And so, so I wanted it to, you know, to feel a little bit dreamlike. And, you know, fans of comic books might remember things like Bill Sienkiewicz was an artist who worked with Frank Miller, and they did Elektra Assassin. That was this version of Elektra, and they did a Daredevil graphic novel, and both of them were so dreamlike and psychological and sort of experimental. And I was also thinking about Pink Floyd The Wall and the way that they use animation in that movie. So these animated sequences, they feel a little bit Saturday morning cartoon, but they also feel sort of moving and like these searing colors, you know, and then of course there's these like actually psychedelic experiences where Max, you know, there's a couple times where it's like strobing and crazy swirls and colors. So the whole feeling there was wanting to make the audience feel like they're being immersed into this universe and sort of overwhelmed by it, as opposed to being shown information.
Right. Now, this could easily be turned into a comic book. Is that a possibility? Because I thought it was based on something, and I went and did the research, but it was right out of your head. Yeah. But it could it turn into some kind of a series?
Yeah, I would love to do that. I have an outline for a graphic novel that would, you know, because the movie plays with time and timeline. So I have an outline for a story that would fill in things that happened both before and after the movie. And I don't, you know, it's a little bit out of my control to do that. The artist that created the animation is a comic book artist, and we've talked about other projects before. So I would love to get together with him and do that. There's definitely, you know, more stories in the world, and a graphic novel version would be amazing, because then, you know, you could really lean into some of those more psychedelic or graphical kind of ideas.
Let's talk about some of the people you got to work with, Joe being one of them, Joe from True Blood and Pee-wee's Big Holiday. I love Joe. And I just watched him last night with my kids. He was in The Sleepover, which is a new Netflix movie. Yeah. And he's a well-rounded actor.
He's great. Yeah. And of course, he's in Magic Mike. He's awesome in the Magic Mike movies.
Yeah. So how was it working with him?
He's the best. I mean, he, you know, he's a guy who is a really well-trained actor. He went to school for theater. He's done a lot of theater stuff, but he's known primarily for being sort of this very masculine, hunky. He's a good dancer. He's, you know, he's really fit. He does a lot of action. He's Deathstroke in the Justice League movie. And so when he and I first started talking, he saw this as a great opportunity for him to really dig into a character, you know, and like really be an actor. And, you know, and I was excited to take this guy who's known for being so handsome and charming and like deconstruct him into a guy with a scruffy beard and broken teeth and mumbling and crazy. And he loved that too. So he really attacked it, you know, like he really went, you know, he plays a guy who is living in a tent under a bridge and is an alcoholic and does meth. And Joe went out and found a guy to be his meth consultant. Like literally he found somebody who's now in the like rehabilitation field, but had a long time ago been a homeless meth addict. And so he worked with Joe on like, here's what it was like for me when I would wake up in the morning and try to, you know, feeling sick and trying to get drugs. And like, and so we had him on as a consultant, and like, that's the, you know, Joe really wanted to create the reality of this character, which is, you know, my thing too. It's like, no matter how insane things start to get, you want the characters to feel real. You want the actors to take it very seriously. So he was a wonderful partner on it. And then of course, when you get into the action, he just loves doing his own stunts, and he's slamming people around and, you know, throwing haymakers and holding. He's teaching everybody how you properly hold a gun, you know.
No, it was a great chance to see him open up as a true actor, because again, we don't get to see that in Deathstroke, or I mean, obviously a great actor, but he did spread his wings. I mean, it was fun watching him try to explain to the kid Hamster what about his homeland and his powers that he had, the frustration, because Hamster didn't really buy into it at first. He wanted him to tell the story, and then it kept calling him a superhero. I just watch the movie. We don't want to give too much away. And then you had two funny individuals that I absolutely love. Glen Howerton from Sunny. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Yeah. And then Paul Scheer, who is one of my favorite comedic actors of all time. He was in The League, and just you see him everywhere. Yeah. Let's talk about Paul first. Paul was still funny because he played this twitchy drug dealer guy. Yeah. But how do you turn Paul into what you turned Paul into? I mean, he had a tattoo on his head. Yeah, I know. Well, I think that scene that Paul Scheer is in is, you know, I've heard feedback that's some people's favorite scene in the home. I mean, it's really like a moment, you know, it's a special surprise that he shows up, and then it's a totally insane scene. When I wrote it in the script, it was my favorite scene. And Paul, you know, people like that, I think when somebody is that good at being comedic, and this is going to be true for when we talk about Glen Howerton as well, it's like there's something about them that's going to make them a great actor. I think the same is true of like pop stars. You know, if you ever see movies that Mick Jagger is in, like Performance,
he's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, people who like have a certain kind of thing can do the other thing really well. And I was lucky because Paul had seen my previous movie at South by Southwest and loved it. So it made it easy for me to come up to him and be like, I've got this totally insane scene with this totally insane character. Would you do it? And he was like, hell yeah. And I think one of the things that's wonderful about Paul is he's so good at improv that even though for the most part in the scene he's sticking to the script, he is using everything around him to make it insane, right? So yeah, the character has he has genius misspelled on his forehead. He's got a waffle that's like dripping with money. He's got like the most absurd tattoos, and he's, you know, it was always in the script. He's only wearing bright red underpants, tight red underpants is his costume, and snakeskin boots. And you can see in the scene, he's just using everything. He's incorporating the snakeskin boots. He's incorporating the tattoos, like all of the pills he's crushing and all the bottles he's drinking from. Like he lives in the moment and tries to extract as much entertainment as he can for everything that's going around him. And then also, because of the nature of the scene, he can become quite menacing. So it was just a great day.
It must have been great for him too, because that he really stretched as an actor in that one scene.
Yeah, I love the idea of people seeing Paul in the movie and just realizing he can do something totally unexpected that you hadn't known about. And, you know, I would love, you know, I hope they should cast him as like the Riddler in the next Batman or something.
Yeah. And Glen Howerton, who is, I mean, he's really been connected to Sonny forever. Yeah. So we don't get a chance to see him in a lot of other projects. He had a great, the show, AP.
Yeah, AP Bio.
AP Bio. Love that show.
Yeah.
But in this movie, he plays the bad guy.
Yeah.
Comedic. And you would hope that you'd get a little comedy from Glenn. And we did.
He brings the comedy and he brings the menace, you know?
Very menacing. Yeah.
I've been a fan of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia since the first season.
Oh yeah.
So it was amazing for me to meet him.
Do you remember the first season, the first couple episodes? Charlie wasn't what Charlie became.
Oh yeah. They all turned everything up to, I think as the years have gone on, they sort of understood like, oh, like Dennis is a sociopath. You know, Charlie is a complete, I don't even know what, you know, like the other guy, you know, Mac is a narcissist. Like they were just kind of normal people that were a little bit scummy. And by the time you get to season 8, they're all archetypes of psychosis.
I think Danny DeVito really helped with that.
Oh, Danny. Yeah. He's the best, right? That one episode where he crawls naked and greased up out of a leather couch. I mean, I remember seeing that and being like, this might be the greatest thing I've ever seen on TV.
Right. And so now you're going to get Danny for something.
Oh God. Yeah. How great would that be? And you know, Glenn was a similar sort of situation as Joe, where he was like, I got into acting actually as a serious dramatic actor. I didn't really think of myself as being comedic. And then I started doing this comedy show and it took off and apparently I'm really good at being funny. So it's like, you know, he was looking at this also as an opportunity to be like kind of a different thing. And I remember one of the first things I said to him was, you know, if Always Sunny was not a comedy, your character would be Patrick Bateman. Like you have an innate sense of how to play a total sociopath, like terrifying person, but you play it in a really funny way. But if you backed it down just a little bit, you're actually a terrifying sociopath.
Oh, I could see that.
And that was sort of an area where we started playing with for his character, the manager. But, you know, once you have him, it's like every little thing he does is so funny. There's a scene with him and Amy Seimetz where he gives her this pitch about what he wants, you know, to do next in his criminal career. And just like the little looks he gives at her make me laugh out loud, you know, and you want that energy. I think for me, I make movies that thematically might be a little depressing. This is a movie ultimately sort of about a breakup and sacrifice and all this thing. So, and the world is pretty bleak. So within that bleakness, you need the actors to bring it to life in a way that's really exciting and colorful, even if you're telling a story that's sort of tragic and violent.
And not go too high with it, not go above board, because that scene you were talking about, he's the manager, he's the guy until his boss comes into town.
Yeah.
And then he just comes down just a bit and, hey, you know, I got some ideas too. Let's talk about it. And she shuts him right down.
Yeah.
Well, the movie's great. I love the movie. I love everybody in it. It was a nice surprise.
Cool.
I know we had connected on Twitter and I didn't know much about the movie, but I knew the actors. And then from that, I watched Daniel, and that was a trip. And like we were saying earlier, you're calm. All of a sudden, and it's not quick.
Yeah.
It's this elevation of terror and tension that might last 3, 4, 5 minutes without really going anywhere. You know what I mean? Like you set this scene where everybody's tense, something's happening, and then it comes down, you get to relax a little bit, your heart rate goes down, and then it comes back up. But it was fantastic. Anything in the works? I mean, COVID must be taking a hit on you.
Yeah, I mean, what was really nice for me, super fortunate, was that we finished shooting this movie right before the pandemic. So I spent a really long part of the beginning of the pandemic working on the edit and finishing it. So I was actually quite busy and didn't have to suffer quite as much as everybody else did. And now I have another script I've written that's a horror movie that has to do with witches. And I'm hoping that that'll get financed. But the other thing that's been really lovely is that with these couple movies, sort of establishing, like you say, like they have a feel, you kind of get a sense of what I do as a director. So I'm starting to meet more people, more writers, more producers who say like, oh, I see what you're doing, and like, would you want to do this? So new projects are coming towards me, which is the first time that's ever really happened to me. And so hopefully really exciting things will happen. I don't, but you don't know. But I do feel like within the next year I'll be shooting something else that, and you're always trying to figure out how do I do better or different. But I feel like I have this world view or, sort of approach to what I think is exciting about filmmaking that I want to explore. Hopefully, make it just a little bit bigger each time.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, it must be nice. People are coming to you. So you do have that, you can lay back just a little bit. And
finding collaborators is the wonderful thing about filmmaking. It's why I'm not a novelist. It would just be so lonely and stressed out. And the thing that's wonderful about filmmaking is you get other brilliant people coming to you, whether they're the actors or somebody who wrote a script or, producers. And that's the thing that I get the most excited about, is working with other people who are brilliant and who can help me make things cooler, Well, keep making cool stuff. It was great talking to you, and thanks for the movies. I always thank everybody I talk to for giving us these little artistic pieces, and it's a nice escape, especially in 2020. We needed these escapes. Right on, man. Thank you so much. It was really fun talking to you, and I'm glad you got to check out the movies. I appreciate that.
I hope to talk to you soon.
Take care, man.
All right, take care, Adam.
Bye.